Hello and welcome to National Focus. I'm your presenter, Mervin. Thank you for joining us. Our top stories this news time. Dominica joins the international community in the observance of World Tourism Day 2019 on Friday. OAS, CARICOM and Commonwealth Joint Commission reports on three-day mission to Dominica, and President of Dominica, His Excellency Charles SAVARIN, addressed the United Nations General Assembly on Thursday. Details of these and other stories coming up. Thank you for staying with us. President of Dominica, His Excellency Charles SAVARIN, has thanked the United Nations for its support to Dominica in the aftermath of Hurricane Maria in 2017. President SAVARIN extended his appreciation on behalf of the government and people of Dominica as he addressed the United Nations General Assembly on Thursday.
We are profoundly thankful for all the attention and support from this body, its member states and specialized agencies in the aftermath of the massive devastation inflicted on us by Hurricane Maria in September of 2017.
President SAVARIN informed the United Nations General Assembly that efforts by the Roosevelt-Skerrit administration to build the world's first climate-resilient nation is progressing.
2 years ago, when Dominica lay in ruins after being ravaged by the Category 5 Hurricane Maria, our Prime Minister, the Honorable Roosevelt-Skerrit, stood at this rostrum a mere 5 days later to address this august body. Prime Minister Skerrit indicated then his resolve to set Dominica on a path to become the first climate-resilient nation of the world. Our Climate Resilience Recovery Plan is nearing completion, and our new implementation agency is fully operational, and the resilience building work has begun. Thousands of homes have been repaired and rebuilt, and hundreds more contracted to be built. New resilient housing units are being constructed all over the island. Public utilities have all been restored. All children are back in school as of January 2018, although some schools remain to be rebuilt. The road network has been vastly improved, and most of the damaged or destroyed bridges have been repaired or are being rebuilt to higher standards. The rivers and watercourses have been dredged, and the greenery has returned to the hills, the valleys, and mountains. Practically everyone visiting Dominica in recent times has described the transformation of the country after Maria as miraculous, and indeed it is.
More from President SAVARIN's address to the United Nations in a subsequent newscast. In other news, Attorney General Honorable Levi Peters says government will continue to seek to engage the opposition parties, stakeholders, the Joint Commission and other regional and international partners in its efforts to successfully implement electoral reform. Speaking to reporters on Thursday, the Attorney General reiterated government's position on the best way forward to achieving electoral reform.
The government is of the firm view that in all the circumstances, the draft amendment bills and the confirmation process proposed in those bills provides the best means of securing credible, workable, and lawful electoral reform, which will deliver mandatory issuance and use of photo identification cards for voting and the updating, otherwise known as cleansing of the voters list.
According to the Attorney General, while government is mindful that an unsuccessful attempt at reform could have serious consequences, there has been a lack of cooperation and support from opposition parties to bring about those reforms.
Instead, the government has at every turn been impeded, obstructed, and has even met with violence and the threat of increased violence in its efforts to get Parliament to pass the necessary amendments to the electoral laws so that the two main reforms, namely mandatory use of photo identification cards for the purpose of voting and updating of the register of electors, the voters list, can be implemented.
On the invitation of government, CARICOM, the Commonwealth Secretariat, as well as the Organization of American States, sent a joint mission of electoral experts to Dominica from August 6 to the 9th, 2019 to discuss electoral reform issues with government, the main political parties, and other stakeholders. The joint mission has since submitted its report entitled Report on the Joint CARICOM Commonwealth OAS Special Mission to Dominica.
Having considered the report, the government is pleased to note that the Joint Special Mission, like the government, is of the view that the existing electoral legislation must be amended to enable the introduction of photo identification cards. The government is also pleased to note that the mission has acknowledged that the Prime Minister has the constitutional right to call elections at any time of his choosing.
Honorable Peter says, however, that government is unable to accept aspects of the recommendations contained in the report, in particular in relation to the recommended house-to-house re-verification exercise.
Additionally, the recommendation that a house-to-house re-verification exercise should be conducted across the country is not supported by Dominica's laws, and even if it was, it could not properly update or cleanse the voters list as proposed because it proposes that persons whose names are on the list but were not met with during the re-verification exercise would still be allowed to remain on the list and to vote. Dominica would therefore essentially be in exactly the same place in respect to the voters list as we now are. Accordingly, the report will have the unacceptable impact of causing the state to incur significant increased financial, human, and other resource costs for no real reform or discernible improvement in our electoral process.
Honorable Peter explained that electoral reform is complex and in many respects a challenging endeavor, which requires cooperation, political maturity, broad involvement, and goodwill of a wide cross-section of society. Copies of the report from the Joint Commission will be presented to President of Dominica, His Excellency Charles Savarin, the Electoral Commission, leaders of political parties, and stakeholders which the mission met while in Dominica. The report will also be made available to the wider public on the government website, that is www.dominica.gov.dm. In more news, Minister for Tourism and Culture, Senator the Honorable Robert Tong, says Dominica is on the brink of something special in the tourism sector. Senator Tong made the remark in his address to mark the observance of World Tourism Day 2019 on Friday. Since 1980, the United Nations World Tourism Organization has celebrated World Tourism Day to raise awareness on the role of tourism within the international community and to demonstrate how it affects social, cultural, political, and economic values worldwide. Minister Tong, in his address, reiterated the importance of Dominica's tourism sector.
For us in Dominica, tourism is responsible for thousands of jobs for women, men, and young people, allowing them to be able to support themselves and their families and to be fully integrated into the national economy and society. Brothers and sisters, our industry is indeed one of the main engines of growth and an effective tool for poverty alleviation and raising living standards among our people. This industry is what drives economic and social development in our country, linking with other key segments of the productive sectors, including agriculture, food and beverage, transportation, telecommunications, culture and entertainment, and a host of other key activities.
The tourism minister noted an increase in the level of investment in the sector by both the private and public sectors. Minister Tong made particular mention of the private sector investments led by the developments under the CBI program. He believes the range of impressive and high-quality projects is evidence of confidence in the sector.
This new confidence in our tourism has resulted in the creation of hundreds of jobs in the construction of high-end properties, improvement in major infrastructure like roads and port facilities, and a number of new ventures supporting the industry. But the jobs are not restricted to construction of hotels and resorts. We are already witnessing the creation of hundreds of decent and sustainable jobs, contributing professional skills in a number of key areas of the industry. This is in addition to the hundreds of jobs that are currently being taken up in large numbers of areas, including the hotel and restaurant sector, taxi and transportation, tour guiding, marine and water sports activities, vending of art, craft, and agricultural produce, and in a wide range of administrative and managerial skills, including hotel management, accounting, human resource management, event planning, among other professional skills.
Minister Tong says government has articulated a policy to promote community tourism as a key pillar of the country's tourism sector.
This means that we emphasize strong linkages between the industry and other elements of our national development. It also means that we are promoting a deliberate policy to integrate local tourism development into the tourism mainstream, as well as to build a supply side of the tourism sector in the long run, to ensure that local suppliers of goods and services are able to benefit from our tourism development. Overall, we are, you can cut that, right? All right, so Overall, we are promoting a model of tourism where local population benefits from the development of tourism in their communities or districts. And so, for this, we are investing in community-based tourism development and the transfer of skills to a large number of tourism workers.
In more news, the Dominica Secondary Schools Supporters Association has donated brand new Wi-Fi projectors to every secondary school in Dominica in its mission to aid in the learning development of the nation's youth. The UK-based charity was initially founded as a forum for the alumni of the Dominica Grammar School, which evolved into the Dominica Secondary Schools Association and eventually DASA. Vice President of DASA, Kafi Kazimi McLean, says the donation was provided by supporters and donors from the UK, Canada, USA, and Europe, who sponsored the charity's annual walk in May 2019.
This time we did some fundraising, mostly in the form of a sponsored walk. We raised half the money for the projectors in this way. We decided in consultation with an organisation called IT for Dominica that this would be a good project to buy Wi-Fi overhead projectors for each secondary school in Dominica. We surveyed the schools to find out if that was something that they could use and how we could support them with this. And so when we had only raised half the money through our fundraising, we then looked at our coffers and we came up with the rest of the money and presented every secondary school last Tuesday with a Wi-Fi projector.
Kazimi McLean says the charity has plans to continue its work in aiding Dominican schools as well as others across the Caribbean through its projects, and thanks to many sponsors and facilitators who made this handover possible.
One of our main fundraisers for the year is a quiz and a quiz night, and we raised quite a lot of money then, which the money that we've raised this time we've actually dedicated to supporting some schools in the Bahamas, because although our corporate, it's Dominica, we still see ourselves as supporting students within the Caribbean. And we look forward to feedback from the principals, and one of the things we might do, I suppose, in the future is support them, because we are aware that you can give gifts to schools, but if they don't have the wherewithal to use them, if they don't have the training to use them, then that can just be a white elephant. So we'll be looking to find out if there's any support we need to give with training.
DASA held its handover ceremony on Tuesday, September 19 at the Goodwill Secondary School. You're watching National Focus. More when we return.
I want to thank the Minister of Tourism and his team for really coming on board on this project and supporting it. And once it is completed, like I said, you will see an enhanced trail.
Welcome back. The Ministry of Health and Social Services has confirmed an outbreak of dengue fever in Dominica. Acting Chief Medical Officer Dr. Adrian Deschousse says there has been no reported deaths associated with the outbreak, but there has been an increase in the number of patients diagnosed and hospitalized in September. Dengue fever is a viral disease transmitted by the Aedes aegypti mosquitoes and causes sudden fever and acute pains in the joints. Dr. Deschousse says the public needs to take precautionary measures to prevent the breeding of the Aedes aegypti mosquito.
Since the beginning of September, there has been an increase in hospitalization due to dengue. There have been 10 laboratory-confirmed cases of dengue by our reference laboratory, the Caribbean Public Health Agency, CAFA. And we have continued to collect samples and sent for confirmation at CAFA. During the period of September 1st to 21st, there have been 45 admissions to the hospital out of 90 suspected dengue cases. 4 of them required, unfortunately, ICU admission. I'm pleased to say, nonetheless, all admission cases were managed and discharged upon improvement. There have been no reported, let me reiterate, there have been no reported deaths from dengue fever at this time.
In Dominica, the outbreak has been limited to the Roseau, La Plaine and Casablanca health districts thus far.
The Ministry of Health and Social Services wishes to announce, based on findings from our epidemiological threshold of Dominica as it relates to dengue fever, we are now at an outbreak of dengue. It is important to note also, thus far the outbreak has been limited to the Roseau, La Plaine and Casablanca health district and their respective catchment areas. Every effort, nonetheless, is being made to stem the further spread to other areas. The beginning of the rainy season throughout the Caribbean region has seen an increase in the dengue transmission and also marks the peak period for the flu. The seasonal flu occurs annually. Generally, one would see that being in the August and November months and February to April. And it is an infection caused by the flu virus.
He explained that dengue can become a serious public health issue.
Dengue, on the other hand, is an infectious disease caused by a virus transmitted by the Aedes aegypti mosquito. You can get dengue fever if you are bitten by a mosquito which is carrying the virus. Dengue fever is also called breakbone fever. It can become a serious public health problem. The symptoms of dengue may mimic that of the general flu or the common seasonal flu. What are some of the symptoms that one may experience if he or she might be experiencing dengue-like symptoms? Some of these would include high fever, eye pain, intense headaches, severe joint pains, and a muscle pain referred to by many patients in those cases, vomiting, and or the typical rash.
Persons presenting symptoms or signs of dengue fever should seek immediate attention at the nearest health center or their personal doctor. To prevent the spread of dengue, you must first prevent the breeding of its vector, the Aedes aegypti mosquito. It prefers to breed in clean, stagnant water, especially found in and around the home.
Persons presenting with severe forms of dengue and those who have chronic conditions such as diabetes, hypertension, those who may be sickle cell disease, for example, or may have heart conditions, should report to the accident and emergency department at the soonest. The Ministry of Health and Social Services advises the public to take precautionary measures to prevent the breeding of Aedes aegypti mosquito, which carries the virus. To prevent the spread of dengue fever, you must first prevent the breeding of its vector, which is the Aedes aegypti mosquito. Where does it breed? Well, it breeds in clean water, stagnant water, easily found in and around our homes or in the vicinity of our homes. You can get rid of the Aedes aegypti mosquito by frequently checking and removing stagnant water in your premises, by keeping your environment clean.
The Ministry of Health and Social Services has stepped up its activities in controlling the spread of dengue. The general public is asked to remain calm and play their part in the fight against the illness.
You may protect yourself from mosquito bites by using a mosquito repellent. Some persons may prefer using mosquito nets while sleeping. The Ministry of Health and Social Services has fully reactivated its National Emergency Dengue Prevention and Control Plan, which strategically focuses on heightened surveillance, comprehensive health education and awareness, source reduction and clinical management of dengue cases, and also brought together its critical stakeholders such as the Primary Healthcare Department, the Health Promotion Unit, Dominica Solid Waste Management Corporation, local government and National Pest and Termite Control Limited, to work together with the Environmental Health Department to minimize the risk and control the spread of dengue in Dominica.
In other news, residents of Bagatelle, Fort Saint-Jean, Point Caribe and Stowe will continue to benefit from government's Housing Revolution program. To date, the Bagatelle Village Council has received over $1.4 million to assist residents with repairs to their homes post-Hurricane Maria. On Wednesday, Parliamentary Representative for the Pittsburgh constituency, Honorable Dr. Kenneth Darrow, presented another check totaling $400,000 towards housing repairs in that constituency.
If you go around, you will see quite a bit of work was done. And as I tell people, every cent of this money can be accounted for. A number of people were given checks, especially people with smaller repairs who just needed a few windows or who felt that they had somebody who could have done the minor works for them. But we did do a number of roofs that cost significant sums of money. We're talking about in the $40,000, $50,000 range. So while I'll be the first to admit, and I'm moving around from time to time and talking to people, that there's still a lot of work to be done as it pertains to housing, and of course other things in these two communities. But I think it's a bit unfair sometimes to say that nothing was done post-Maria.
The Member of Parliament presented a check of over $250,000 to the Fisheries Cooperative for the procurement of boats and outboard motors. part of the financing specifically for the outboard motors was made available through the Rapid Response Program.
The request that I have, the needs list, is well over $800,000, but because the boat building process is going to be done on a contractual basis, a contractual arrangement with a boat builder, a guy from Layo who's already been contacted, so pretty soon we will probably have another little ceremony to do the contract signing. As I'm sure you will, let's be practical, that only a few boats can be built in any given time. So I've already met with reps from the Fisheries Cooperative and also a few fishermen, okay, to get their feedback. So we'll be dealing with what we call the priority list. So we're hoping that this $150,000 can build us at least, say, between 7 and 8 21-foot, mixture of 21 and 23 footers, meaning boats.
Honorable Darrow says arrangements will be made to accelerate the process of the disbursement of funds to enable the fisherfolk to get back to their way of life.
We'll meet with the Fisheries Cooperative so we can finalize the list. So the $100,000 for the rapid response will be used to procure outboard motors. Okay, and then these checks will be readily available. Some of them might be ready if once the list is finalized within a 24-hour span. So because there are some folks who require just outboard engines only, and there are some who have been asking for outboard engines and boats. So the plan is that the guys requiring that outboard engines alone, we will take care of them in the first instance under the rapid response program, so they can get the outboard engine within the next 2 days or so.
The Dominica Festivals Committee continues to promote the island's premier musical event, the World Creole Music Festival. Project Officer at the Discover Dominica Authority, Daphne Vidal, told a news conference on Wednesday that overseas promotions are ongoing.
At this time, we have a team in Guadeloupe who are doing media promotion and promotion with some of our stakeholders in Guadeloupe. So the Festival and Events Manager, Martha Williams, is presently in Guadeloupe alongside Gordon Henderson doing this promotion until today. So she will be back on island tomorrow, only to head off to Martinique this weekend for similar promotions in Martinique. So we'll be doing a presentation on the festival with media houses in Martinique, as well as some of our partners in Martinique. So there'll be radio interviews, TV appearances, and all of that, all to get persons hyped up in Martinique and Guadeloupe for the festival, because we know that a large number of persons from these islands come to our festival.
The festival will be held from October 25th to the 27th. At the Windsor Park Stadium. And finally, this news time, the Adult Education Division has completed yet another successful program. A national graduation ceremony was held on the 18th of September at the Public Service Union building. Aliyah Martin has more in this report.
The Adult Education Division hosted a number of skill training programs during the summer, including hair braiding, acrylic application, floral decoration, cake decorating, and guitar classes. An exhibition was hosted on the 30th of August depicting the true success of the summer programs. 279 men and women participated in the program, which ran from July 8th to September 1st. The Minister of Ecclesiastical Affairs, Family and Gender Affairs, Honorable Catherine Daniel, says the division can assist in building a resilient nation by empowering citizens through its academic skills and capacity building programs. Honorable Daniel made particular mention of lifelong learning and adult literacy. She says an educated populace leads to a more successful nation.
According to UNESCO, adult education is responsible for the personal development of adults by creating avenues to develop their abilities, enrich their knowledge, improve their technical and professional qualifications, and bring about changes, as we saw here this afternoon, in attitudes or behavior that will have positive effects on their individual lives, families, communities, and countries. And I just want to pause at this stage to say, when somebody is trying to make a difference in their life, we have to support them, we have to be there for them. We do not have to bring back anything but to assist. If you cannot do good for someone, do nothing at all to them.
The objective of the division is to motivate and stimulate the participation of persons from all levels in society to work towards an intensified adult education program, commencing with basic literacy and continuing in lifelong education. Head of the Adult Education Division, Nadia Pinard, highlighted some of the works done by the division in the 7 districts.
We had CSEC in English, 5 males, 12 females. Maths, 5 males, 12 females. HSB, that's Human and Social Biology, 1 male, 9 females. Office Administration, 8 females, and the Principles of Business, 6 females, that's in Portsmouth. A fire safety, first aid, and CPR training in collaboration with the Dominica Fire Services held at Clifton was facilitated by Mr. Tony John Baptist and Mr. Michael Warrington with 15 participants, 14 females and 1 male. A parenting session was held at Paybush together with the Paybush PTA. 14 females were in attendance. We also had intermediate sewing, which was held with 7 participants and was facilitated by Miss Nidelma Thomas. During the summer, we had hair braiding. I'm sure you enjoyed that. With Rita Alcid, 8 females. Electrical wiring, which was facilitated by Earl Matthew, 6 participants, including 1 female. Cake decorating, pastry making, basic sewing.
Quite apart from the skills obtained, participants of the program also excelled academically.
This year, the division received 41% pass in English, 92% in POB, that's Principles of Business, 57% in Accounts, 40% in Office Administration, and 80% pass in Human and Social Biology. Special mention must be made of the 100% pass in Principles of Business by our inmates of the Dominica State Prison. Let's give them a round of applause.
789 persons participated in the adult education program for the period of September 2018 to September 2019. Lorenzo Pinard, an inmate from the community of Bath Estate, delivered a remarkable impression on behalf of the prison academic program.
During the course of my imprisonment sometime late last year, I became aware of the adult education program being undertaken at the prison. I understand that 2 subjects were being studied and the classes had already commenced. Despite my lateness and missing out on quite a bit of classes, I dived headlong into the subjects. With just about 6 months left before the exams, and with great determination, I was able to catch up with the class and make the most of the little time that I remained. I did this through constant reviewing of the material that was taught at class and tremendous late night reading and assimilation of information from the textbook. Hence the reason I excelled during the examinations. For enabling me to accomplish my achievements, I would like to give credit and thanks to my amiable teachers, Ms. Graham and Ms. Davis, who encouraged us to do our best in spite of our misfortunes. Thank you. Even when the pressures of incarceration were taking a toll on us, they understood and remained committed and kept on motivating us to ensure that we stuck to it till the end. A big thank you to the bright, beautiful, and benevolent Miss Graham, my POB teacher, whose favorite words are, and I quote, "I'm actually spoon-feeding you all," is the reason I stand here today, proud to have achieved the grade 1 in the Principles of Business.
Lorenzo is grateful to the adult education and the management of the state prison for the opportunity to further his education and giving second chances.
My dear auntie, I would like you and the people that I hurt to know how sincerely sorry I am, which is even beyond what words can express for all the troubles, the problems, the headaches, the heartaches, and the embarrassment I must have caused. So I am resolved to make a complete turn in my life for the betterment of my son and myself, because I know nothing would make you all happier than to see me progress and prosper along life's challenges. Thanks again to you, Auntie June, who never turned your thoughtful grey eyes away from me. I would like you all to know that from now on, I am determined to stay focused and to continue this course. To further my life and education, I intend to prove this by taking action instead of just speaking words. This is my promise to you all and myself. I can assure you that these subjects I have managed to obtain is just one step out of many.
GIS also caught a touching moment as Honorable Catherine Daniel shared a heartfelt message after inmate of the Dominica State Prison delivered his impression.
I'm really, really proud of you. You know, it takes someone who really wants to change to say I'm sorry to a crowd. You know, and that was masterful. That was great.
Youth development has always been a priority from the government of Dominica through the Ministry of Ecclesiastical Affairs, Family and Gender Affairs. This will enable the continued empowerment of youth, creating better lives for all. I am Alia Martin reporting.
And that's news now for the weather outlook. A high-pressure system is expected to result in a relatively dry atmosphere during today. However, low-level clouds moving westward could result in occasional cloudiness, a few passing showers, and a slight chance of isolated thunderstorms mainly during the afternoon. Meantime, a tropical wave located in the tropical Atlantic is expected to approach the area by tonight into Saturday, resulting in an increase in moisture levels. Category 4 Hurricane Lorenzo is now on a northwestward track over the central tropical Atlantic. Lorenzo is currently projected to remain over open water. However, swells generated by this system could affect the east coast of Dominica during the weekend. Sea conditions are expected to be slight to moderate during the next 12 hours, with waves expected to peak near 5 feet. However, all users of the sea, particularly on the east coast, are advised to be vigilant for swells generated by Hurricane Lorenzo by late today into the weekend. Now for the tip of the day. And that's National Focus. This and other newscasts can be found on GIS Dominica Facebook and YouTube pages. On behalf of the GIS News Production team, I am Mervin. Thanks for watching.